So because you have the sound frequency and light frequency, and all these are energy exchanges. They all have influence into our system. I'm being redundant, but
can we talk about tools?
Yeah, please. Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's talk a little bit. If you do this holistic wellbeing check-in, and I encourage anyone at home to really do this for themselves. So they check in on themselves where they are and do it quickly.
Yeah.
It's quite good doing it with your partner as well. Don't share answers and then compare them at the end. And then when I dig deeper into each bucket, I give them another chance to go around. I go, knowing what you know now, the way I explain each of these buckets, is your score changed? Most people do.
Okay.
Because they go, oh, I didn't see it like that. Oh, I didn't see it like that. People are so hard on themselves in the first part.
For sure.
In the way I look at it. And then I start talking through it and go, oh, so see where their scores are. They've had a good. But then what do they do about it? So the next thing is building out your toolbox, right? These are all the tools you can call on at any time. And I really divide them into tools that I can call on quickly. Okay. And then so you've got tools for instant change. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I did yoga this morning. I woke up a little sleepy, cold, snowy outside, did yoga, felt great afterwards. It's the movement tool, right? When you move, and you see here, I'm not saying training or working out.
Okay, yeah.
Because if I was to say to someone who doesn't exercise or move, hey, you work out or train, they may have these feelings of high school gym class or something else. Right?
Yeah, sure.
There's an energy that goes with that as well.
Yeah, straight lifting.
So moving. Move how you like to move. I don't care how you move, just move. It could be yoga, it could be a boot camp, it could be running, it could be lifting, it doesn't matter. But when you move, particularly doing something you like, and I follow the principle, ask the body, don't tell it. What does the body need today? I need something a bit more energy, a bit more fire, or something a bit more yin. Afterwards, you feel good. There's a chemical release, a chemical response to that. And what tends to happen after you move and exercise, feel good, the next decisions you make tend to be good ones.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
You don't often just come out of an exercise class where you're feeling good and then make really bad decisions. You just don't.
Yeah.
So building out people's toolbox, okay, on the things that you can have instant change, like, for example, water. Drinking water, clean water. Clean. When I say clean water, spring water is what I tend to buy. Is maybe not too clean coming out of the tap, but I'd rather drink tap water than no water.
Sure,
every time. And I'm not saying caffeine, Coca-Cola. Here, I'm not. Okay. Drink a whole lot of water when you're feeling tired and lethargic. It wakes up the body.
Yeah.
It just does. Okay. Particularly when you become a bit more aware of your physical self. So building out these tools, that what you eat, how you move, and then how you think.
Okay.
The thoughts you're telling yourself, right? Then you've got tools like that I break down into services. For example, what do I mean by that? I go get a massage. You feel good after a massage. Acupuncture is awesome.
Right.
Working on your meridians and in different areas of the body. Fantastic for opening us up energetically.
Right.
And then along those lines, you could get a Reiki session. You go do a breathwork session with someone if you don't want to do it yourself. So there are things you can go and do.
Okay.
But there's things you can do for yourself.
Yeah, I could see that too with, like you mentioned, the massage. That was the first one too, because you're breaking out some of those, the lactic acids or the energy cells that are being stored and not moving. And also too is another one is maybe not the same, but is breath work, because you're expanding, you're adding in oxygen, you're pulling in, opening, expanding.
So we'll talk about that soon, but that's all around the nervous system. And I think energetically, the nervous system, we have to talk about that. So we have to include the nervous system at some point. Yeah. But do you know what the most popular one at the moment is? It's very trendy. And I love that all this is trendy at the moment. It's great because we're not pushing it on people. People are coming forward with this. Cold experiences.
Oh, cold plunge. Yeah. The cold plunge. Great.
Plunge.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You want to change your energy in a moment, instantly? That's it. Now, not everyone has a cold plunge. We live in Chicago and Illinois. It's freezing at the moment. Just take a cold shower. Come out of those cold pipes.
Yeah.
I think I've told you this before. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, cold showers every day. And it's a game changer.
Is it? Okay.
And see, this isn't in isolation. My movement routine, I watch what I eat, watching what I think, trying these different things, they all add up.
Sure. Yeah. There's a broader influence. There's a
broader
collective
influence.
This, again, systems within systems, pulling those all together.
The most powerful one is meditation.
Yeah. I know you're a huge proponent of meditation.
But
so
what we're talking about here is, I think, a much easier for most people to grasp their head around nutrition, movement. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Understanding the people they're with. Is that pulling them down? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hobbies. Here's an interesting.
Okay. So is this more on the mental exercise, or the mental expansion, the mental excitement, the sparks of
It's the spark. So
of joy?
when I say to people, what do you do in your spare time? And I'm very guilty of this. Okay. What do you do in your spare time? And is that what you love to do? Or are you doing what your partner likes to do? Or are you doing nothing? What lights you up in your hobbies? We don't have hobbies as much anymore. And I feel screen time has taken a lot of that.
I could see that.
We don't do things as much anymore. Right. And so finding what lights you up and doing more of it.
Yeah. I would say, I think you're right. I actually do. I really do. I believe, and I could be wrong. It's hard to say. Maybe there's a lot of different hobby groups that are still out there. I just remember more segmented groups, or
it doesn't always have to be in a group.
Though, it's you know what group. I mean? Yeah, I know. But just people that are focused on hobbies, I think that we allow our brains to get hijacked by the TV and the options of what's on all the different platforms, because there's just plethora of access to endless entertainment to allow our brains just to get turned over to something else. So that's very interesting with the hobbies and the joys and the little and the passions.
I call it pleasure and play.
Okay.
Instead of hobbies, but pleasure and play. And I go, oh, how do you like to play? And when you ask an adult, hey, how do you like to play? They freak out. They go, what do you mean play? I don't play.
Yeah.
Why not? But where did we lose this ability to play?
Play, right.
Because there's an energy with play. Obviously, the energy is playfulness, but there's an energy with play that it's light, it's unstructured. It's a very, this is my happy place. It's quite interesting.
That is interesting. So now you have me thinking too.
When you watch kids play,
it's
unstructured. Yeah. The learning is in flow. They are in flow.
Absolutely.
You lose track of time. And that's where most of the learning happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some of the programming that I've built out, boot camp style programming on this giant turf space at Midtown Athletic Club, has elements of play and games in there.
Okay.
And it's very interesting. We rolled it out because I used to call it playing games. And what I heard from instructors were like, the members don't like the word play or games. Okay, let's call it something else, but we're still going to do it. So we hide it.
Yeah.
But we still do it. And people are running around and trying to pick things up and steal things from other people and put them in the middle. And they're playing these games or running relays. And I watch. So they're exercising, moving, more fluid than when they were doing the exercises. And they're laughing and communicating and high-fiving. And that's it.
Yeah.
That is it.
That's
we don't do
fascinating.
That enough. You know?
That is fascinating. Because, I think there is a rigidity or a structure that kind of sets in our lives. And that's some of the early psychologies of that. And there's a lot of studies that before age 7 is when the bulk of our absorption of knowledge and learning and is set into motion, that's programmed into gear at that point as we go on. But I think that the unstructured and the allowance of the freedoms and the exploration is such a powerful aspect of any age. That's not age specific, but it's interesting because we put ourselves into this. We're willing participants into.
You and I have talked about this before about age, and people feel like, I'm getting old. I don't have the energy I used to. Okay. I don't buy any of that. I just don't.
No, I agree.
We've given up. And I have the same energy now, if not more than I did when I was in my 20s.
And that's a direct result of the patterns and the habits and the actions you take on a consistent basis. That's the response to that.
For sure.
There are people in their elderly ages that are doing big physical feats of marathons or Ironmans or whatever that version is. It's not that everybody has to do that to that scale, but it's very plausible and available to us.
It so is. So I think, as you can see, this is a broad topic.
Yeah.
We've broken it down to that check-in that I had, and then the tools that people can use.
Yeah, very practical, very having the recognition and awareness that are surround. And then the check-in points are going to tell you, it's going to see the evolution of it too.
Yeah.
I did want to say too, is I think you had touched on it as far as the first time they do that. I wonder if there's a sense of being exposed or being criticized for it. So people are a little bit tougher on themselves. But I think energetically, emotionally, mentally, I think we do that. We approach a lot of things that way with apprehension and a slowing, but an openness of, and I'm going to bring this back to, I'm going to try to get here, but is when we're talking about going into either the meditations and being present, not living in the past, not living in the future, is having those responses of not the nothingness of not being concerned of what those responses are and being very tuned in. That's why, so when you run around the circle of asking the questions and not allowing them to put their brain first, is where they're going to start hitting the points. But then after they've let down the guard of understanding, I'm not going to be criticized. I'm not going to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger over this. I have the allowance. I think people can tune into that. So there's a comfort in this, and that's part of the practice. So I think that's the energy of the allowance in that window of ease and rest is going to give us be more honest and truthful with ourselves. The recognition will become much clearer and much quicker. So the cadence of times of us recognizing what's setting us off, as far as the agitation, rigidity, nervousness, pent up energy that's not transmuted or dispersed, we're going to be able to, with something like that, you're talking about with this check-in, it's going to, I'll say train or program our minds, whatever's fair with that. And as we go on with that, we're going to be able to go, I see it now. I see it now. I see it now. And now I can adjust in where I want to be. So we're in the driver's ship, or we're in the helm of the ship, rather than getting carried away down the river on the rapids.
Yes. And creating that, the vocabulary, the energetic vocabulary, so they can name what they're feeling. Okay. That's an important piece of this as well. Like, how are you feeling today? A lot of people just don't take stock of that, right?
I would imagine too that you have the circle. So in a sense, you are recognizing where we started the conversations is not in a silo. It's not in a vacuum. It's all connected. If you're over here on the chart, whatever that is, love, play, food, whatever, hydration, you're going to recognize that there's maybe a pull of energy from here or there. And the identification of the whole should be, you're going to have more consciousness around it. You're going to have more clarity around it and be able to make those next little one decisions, those 1% little changes consistently with more confidence, just more empowerment into the recognition and the process. And the next step, the action.
And it's actually quite simple.
Sure.
When you start to
Absolutely.
start to identify how you're feeling.
Yeah. But it's a practice though, too.
It's a practice.
So, yeah.
Now, we live so much up in our head, overthinking and analyzing, and thoughts carry an energy. Words carry an energy and thoughts carry an energy. This intention and this energy flows with it. And if we tend to speak to ourselves pretty poorly, generally.
Yeah. We can.
We can.
Absolutely.
We do. Most people do.
10 things are going to happen. 9 things are going to be good or neutral or whatever, that one thing. And then we're going to beat ourselves up over it.
And there's a currency in this, right?
Yeah.
And when we're overthinking and stressed out, there's so much going on here. And the proliferance of adult ADHD diagnoses now at the moment is it's more than we've ever seen before.
Really? Okay.
It's incredible.
That's funny. I haven't heard anything about that. Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense to have adult ADHD disorders that are more prevalent or they draw more out of someone's day.
Well, think about the information we're getting. It's so short form and very quick on our phones, emails, where we are, TV, YouTube.
Yeah, text, everything. Yeah.
And this concept of squirrel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Squirrel.
When you have all these different conversations going on, even in that too, you can have about 5, 6, 7, 8 conversations via text or chats or Slack or whatever it is. So, yeah, and your mind's going.
Now, when you're in that space, right? You're in that space. I'm eating the poor foods, not getting enough sleep, all of these indicators that I'm not getting any movement or exercising to dissipate this feeling. I'm stressed at work with the workload. My relationships aren't where they need to be because I'm at work too much. There's always a system of systems here, right? Good luck trying to solve that up here.
Yeah.
When you're caught up in the muddle of it all, right? So that's a good point. There's a system here, Paul, and there's a few things, there's a few steps. So through identification and awareness, and you've got these tools that you can call on, fantastic. But I'm going to go back to this, mindfulness and meditation. Yeah. So the process of mindfulness, and you can only be mindful in the present moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Think about that one for a second, everyone. But you can only be mindful in the present moment. And through practicing, sitting and practicing, you can stand if you want to, but prefer you sat comfortably and just let go. Surrender. And whatever is weighing in your mind and what's going around up here, because it will be, see it for what it is and try and put it right out here. Visualize where it is and see it for what it is. We get so caught up in our thoughts, right? And here's the thing. We're playing out the future, reliving the past. We're creating stories. And once we realize that, we're creating situation scenarios that haven't even happened, right? And they affect us all physically. Oh my God, this is going to happen. I'm going to feel this. Nothing's happened yet.
Yeah, the imagined world. We stress over the imagined world quite a bit.
All the time. Yeah. Or we live in the comfortable past, right? And base everything off that. But if we can see it for what it is and identify it, and most of these things tend to come up on repeat.
Yeah.
The same situations happening over again, different people, different players, and see it for what it is and identify that. And we can start to work with that. Is that really true? No, it's not. Move it across. Okay. And when we can start to get to a place of nothingness,
Yeah.
where we've surrendered into our body, we've identified where we feel resistance, because when you start to meditate, you will feel resistance. When people do breath work, they most often feel resistance after 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then they break through it.
Mhm.
Tell people to push through that, push through that. You will. And they do. That's where the breakthroughs come.
Yeah.
Identify where that resistance is coming, sink into it, identify why. This is the practice of mindfulness, active meditation. Clear it, create space. This is the quantum field. This is where we replant, reprogram in the quantum field from a space of nothingness.
Mhm.
Okay? And then when we come back, we tend to be clear in our thoughts and our patterns. And
I want to add to something that we said, but I'll end back where you are now too, was there's a sense of having that awareness. So we are, and we also talked about being in charge, being the director of the path of our actions, and we let ourselves where we're at. Okay. And then in this situation that I'm going to kind of name is that sense of, oh, I don't like where I'm at the moment. Some of it's maybe then it's going to go into that, what we were talking about, what you were talking about was the hydration, maybe you ate bad food, all these different influences. We could rattle those off. So there's a sense, I would say too, and I'm going to play with this a little bit, and you can disagree with me if you think this, but again, and I should never say most, less, whatever, but I think sometimes people will, if you have recognition and you got yourself somewhere you don't want to be, you'll realize, okay, I led myself here. Now I'm upset with myself. If you don't have recognition and you don't like where you want to be, I would blame someone else that I'm here. So there's this inward and outward of internalization or externalization on where I'm at today. But inevitably is all the energy you're absorbing from food, from your surroundings, your internal, your ears, you're watching, you're absorbing everything. You're jumping around, not closing communication loops and stressed and rigidity and everything. Internalization of that, or this would actually be a bigger conversation, but it would be externalizing your power, because that gets into externalizing your power, giving your power away. So in that sense of it's somebody else's fault, they're to blame in this, so follow me for a second here, but you're giving your power to exterior of yourself when it really is within you, within your field, to adjust and correct. So now you have to take ownership and onus on this and backstep. So I'm really conveying, and it's no question, it's not a question here. It's just an observation of where I think people can get stuck in these energy loops of where they don't want to be. And okay, now I have to go backwards, and now I have to start creating movement again, and being hydration and eat good food and all these things that become overwhelming. So we overwhelm ourselves, and we can get stuck in some of those patterns of that are on the wheel you're talking about, but the record player starts getting off the circle.
I think people, it's like when people say, oh, I want to lose weight. I'm going to go on a diet for 2 months. They're playing an infinite game with a finite mindset.
Sure.
And we've talked about this before. And I think that's what that is.
Yeah.
You know, these are healthy habits, creating awareness and creating healthy habits for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So that's a great recognition.
The rest of your life. Now, this is an important one. Does that mean I'm high vibe all the time and everything is good? No way. We're not meant to be. We're human. We're meant to feel all of the emotions.
Oh,
right?
Good point. Yeah.
We're meant to feel all of the emotions. We're meant to feel all of the energies, right? That's just the way it is. But do I hold on to that for a week now and bitter and fester? There are certain things I do. I'm very aware of it though.
All right.
I'm very aware of it. And so I know what it is and I know what I need to do. It's the situational person. I need to distance myself from that, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's this spiritual people and healers. They're always high vibe and happy.
Yeah, or coaches or anything else.
Like coaches, right?
Somehow you've reached this level of perfection, and it's not it.
It's the imperfection that makes us
absolutely
good at what we do.
Exactly. I think there's the awareness, the recognition, and then it gets into another level of being able to identify patterns and help and nurture and redirect. And that's with that in particular, but nobody has it figured out. It doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter how long you live. we become proficient at certain things, and maybe we even degrade in other areas, but that is part of the human journey. It is, there is no,
I mean, the concept of energy, being a Reiki master and working with energy on a metaphysical level, on a sort of a quantum level, as one says, and so it's not very material. People struggle to wrap their head around a lot of that. But I've seen and witnessed and felt some of the most remarkable things that have happened through energetically. If you think there's someone is in pain somewhere, emotion, by the way, emotional, I could break my arm, it'll heal quicker than a broken heart.
absolutely.
Okay. So there's a frequency with an emotional pain. There's a frequency with physical pain, internal pain, disease. And what I've really noticed through my own practice and studies is the different auric levels. And this is proven now, scientifically proven, that the different auric levels of the body coming up the space relate to different energy centers and relate to our first layer, our closest layer is our physical body. That's where most of us stop.
Yes.
The physical being. But then there's emotional layers, and there's etheric layers, and there's deeper layers. And
right. And what's interesting too is that I think, and I don't even think that, I don't know. It stops there. Is that because that's a logical point to stop? Is that because all we can see, touch, and feel? And because on that, inherently, I think as humans, we know, well, I don't want to say we know. There is that sense. We talked about it in the beginning. Somebody lights up a room. Somebody has good energy. Somebody has bad energy. Sometimes you're walking and you just get the heebie-jeebies about somebody, and you just know something's not, right, or intentions aren't there. So that's beyond the body. So again, not to say most, but I think that many people can recognize that it's beyond the scope of our structure. But I would say that I think a lot of people do get stuck right here. It stops. Or again, I'll go into that siloing or compartmentalization. They're like, okay, yes, maybe there's something else and energy has changed. But it's separate from me. So now there's a logical point of separation. So the allowance or the acceptance or the knowledge and the wisdom and whatever that version, term, or word that means that connection point for you is understanding that I have access to it. I'm within that. It never goes away. It's never lost. I don't want to linger on the loss, but I think sometimes people feel there's an exchange. Like I have to trying to think of a way to tangibly put that, but energy never dies. So it's a sense of, I'm going to lose this energy, or it dissipates away. But I think that's now we're going to get back into the body. And that's when you maybe ate the bad foods or they're not hydrated. And you think that it's your etheric, energetic body. And I will say something too. There was a term that you've used before, and that's energetic integrity. And if you have a different interpretation of this, but I do look at that as the integrity of the system, integrity of the recognition. And I don't want to say purity, that's not right, but the awareness of having
energetic integrity is when we're completely lined up. And what do I mean by that? Our thoughts, so our mental mind, our feelings, our emotional body, our physical body, we're in flow. When you are, flow is the best example. And I'm sure everyone can, to think of a time when they're in flow and what they're doing. Hopefully it's when they're doing their hobbies and not just their work. But something magical happens here, and that's the energetic integrity of things are all lined up and in place. And Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, and I love that. I love this. What he talks about here is when your thoughts and your feelings are lined up, and this is the process of manifestation, right? And then you're in a place of nothingness to reprogram this and start to create. Things start to happen. Things start to come your way. Things start to unfold. It can work both in the positive way and the negative way. One of the things I'm fascinated about, and I do not have the answer to this, is why it's so much easier for us to go to the negative than the positive.
That's very, very interesting.
Most people live in the negative more than the positive.
Or it's just that, or the same version of that would be that you're just magnifying the one aspect of that. Really tying into a lot of the things we just said is there's also group energy. So you have a collective. We've talked about really the physical body. You brought some really great points about the physical body and with movement and internalizing. But let's talk about that group. And I want you to start with that because I think you can go a couple different ways. There is the physical activities, very body way, but there's also too the mental, emotional, and the spiritual
group consciousness.
Right? There's things like when you talk about the group, the sound baths or the sound bowls, your frequency and the energetic levels, or whether they're completely in resonant sync or there is a sync within the environment.
There's something we are active social beings. We're meant to work in communities. Yes, isolation is great, but we are designed to be in communities, right? And there's something very special. I'm going to start with the movement piece first. Okay. Exercise. When people exercise and move in groups, okay, and there's studies and research coming out of this, particularly out of Penn State, which I find quite interesting. Bryce Hastings, a good friend of mine, a New Zealander, is really looking at this. He calls it the groupness effect.
Okay.
They say when people are moving in synchronization, particularly to music, okay, energetically, okay, it creates something called the groupness effect where they come together collectively and they have just like a better experience.
Interesting.
Right? Now, it's quite interesting. It is interesting. And particularly when people are in synchronicity and in rhythm. And that what makes me think of, and I look at that, if you think of anyone who's done a group exercise class or a team in yoga, there's in synchronicity to the class.
Spin classes.
You know what it is? There's something there. There's a collective energy. You go do that on your own. You're like, you do it in a group. There's something there, right?
Interesting.
There is something there. I believe in this so much. Now, I also think of this in another way. Concerts. Music festival. You're coming together for music and people are dancing.
That ties into a similar frequency. It's tuned. It's being delivered, but there's an attunement there. Mm-hmm. And all the people are absorbing the same attunement, whether they're receiving it the same way, it's going to be within a similar frequency level. So that's a fascinating one
something special happens there.
Yeah.
And people connect in there. There's that smile, or you connect and you're a high vibe, you feel good. That there's something there, okay, around the collective consciousness. But it can also work in a good and a bad way. And social media is interesting as well. You can see this collective consciousness. All those people that are negative and grumpy and trolling, they like to form that, right? You see it politically. Yeah. You see it happen in there's this group mentality and people tend to hang out with people that think the same as them. Okay. Not always, but we tend to be drawn to that. So collective group energy. Mm-hmm. I don't know where this is going, but I think there's something there for sure.
Oh, there absolutely is. I keep going into the inner world and the outer world with that. And I know I said this a couple of times. It's about giving your power away, giving your energy away. I only say that because I really do think that people do it quite a bit, and it's projecting it out. It's a lot of times it's not. Maybe there is a centric of a one to one person to one person, but there probably is some level of the group as well, of allowance of the group energy to just being consumed in that process and easing into it. I'll say on a personal level of giving power away, I think there's also a form of rescue that I think people seek from others, and they give their power to others or other situations or energy vampires. And I think there's an allowance that people can be willing participants in that because they want to be rescued. They want to change their life. And then you get into a different level of somebody going down the path themselves, or when they're because we're the captains of the ship. I think I use a similar about that. But
Paul, the thing about this is an activity I like to do with people is list the 5 or 10 people you surround yourself with the most, and make it a mix of work and home. And how do you feel when you're in their presence? Mm-hmm. When you're present in their presence, how do you feel? Mm-hmm. I feel good. I feel drained. I feel, and that's that's down to that vocabulary. I like, if you can build out your vocabulary to describe how you feel in these situations, it makes things so much easier as you're pinpointing things, right? Yeah. And there are some people, I may be with someone who energetically drains me, but that person may energetically lift you up.
Yeah.
Tends not to work like that.
No, it tends not to work like that.
Particularly with friends. Like you and I are friends. We probably find the same with the same person.
I wonder too, is there are times where I think it can be, looking back in my own experience, where I'll provide energy to the room to lift it up. But some of that, I guess then you can get on of why you do that, or what is that, or
Tony Robbins is the best.
Yeah. So
so good.
There's an allowance and a giving of that energy, and it does come back too. It can come back in its own way too.
And all I want people to come out of this is, yet again, is awareness. When they're in that meeting at work and they're like, ooh, This call doesn't feel right. It doesn't flow. Start to try and isolate what it is you're feeling and what you think it is or who it is.
Right.
Can you make peace with this? Can you build that bridge? But most of all, you need to protect your energy, and do not protect be mindful of protecting your energy by just putting up barriers.
I think when people put themselves in the corner, so there could be a barrier because there's a response to a recognition or reflection, feeling like they're going to be attacked. And so a defensiveness, or you can become on the offensiveness, depending on your personality, and change the direction. And then if you're talking about transmuting that, or loving them for what they are, when you're in those spaces and you have a detachment, that's another exercise of energy. You'll notice that those rooms will change in those dynamics. And not all times that doesn't happen every time, but over time with the practice, I believe you can.
You and I have talked about this a lot. We run a program called Mindful Leadership, and I think we unpack this a lot in detail. The modern workplace isn't equipped to deal with this.
Okay. Yes.
I'm generalizing it. The old style of work and the way leaders led people or managed people, or the hierarchy, and it just
the carrot and the stick. And
right.
It's so much of that, I'll call it antiquated mindset. But a lot of it's out of fear. It's out of control and fear. And if I have to, I'm not going to get the response. So I'm going to go over. We don't have time to do that. I think that'd be another actual good subject matter. But I'd be based out of that fear instead of, and I believe that with the conscious collective, I personally believe it is that more and more people are becoming aware, awakening into and recognition of energy and feeling it and noting it internally. So I think that those ways, I'll call them, the resonant vibrations are not allowing for it as much. I don't believe that. I think people are drawing away from them wherever they can, seeking other companies in this sense, or groups, or what have you, is that don't have that mentality, that understand the relative exchange of energy, whether it's a conscious or unconscious.
That's exactly it. Leaders need to be more mindful of the energy they're bringing into their space.
Absolutely.
As a leader, you are responsible for your team and the output they're doing and the production and performance of the company. And that's the mindful leadership piece. Leaders becoming more mindful of the energy they bring to a situation.
Yeah, the gratitude, the vulnerability that's worked in there, and understanding that your words and actions there's a ripple in the pond, and there's an impact in having awareness. As a leader, you have to make decisions and imply change and momentum, but you have to understand that there's a resonance. So when you embody and you be able to bring that energy of communication and vulnerability. Yes.
Can I just raise one more point? Is empaths.
Yes. Empaths. Yes.
Okay.
I believe there's more recognition with
they feel it,
understanding. Yeah, absolutely.
And as the empaths,
and I believe there's more empaths out there.
We're creating empaths.
Yeah,
I like to say I'm creating empaths, and I think that's a good thing to create. I used to get criticized a lot, particularly in my early days in my career, as you feel too much, you're too emotional, and that's my superpower now.
Yeah,
I'm not hiding from that
absolutely.
Anymore. And when I hid that, I got a completely different effect, right? But anyway,
that was a form of shaming or compartmentalizing you and putting you in a box and categorizing you and naming you. And
I was growing up, and I think quite often this is the case for males. We're growing up to share that showing emotion.
Yeah, it's a weakness. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Isn't this all backward? But anyway, it's interesting. But so empaths out there, empaths, don't fret. You are going to feel more. We talked, I think, a couple of weeks ago about the pendulum of feelings, right? But empaths, you need to come up with in your toolbox your ways to protect yourself. The word's guard, but really protect yourself. How can you protect and clear yourself in healthy ways?
Right.
Because we haven't even talked about this, is the coping mechanisms that people tend to go to: smoking, drinking.
Absolutely, yes.
Drugs,
which ties into some of the foods and stuff that we talked about, and the protective and the bubbles around. So we definitely don't have time for that one. So there's one last thing I'd like to touch on is we threw the word nothingness out there. And I would like to, because you and I had a little bit of a conversation about this off camera, and going into a space of nothingness. Now, this may feel and smell and everything different to different people. I'm just going to use it in the context of maybe say a meditation, or quickly going into a space of where you have acceptance where the agitations or the anxieties and everything is either and this is again, I'm going to just be careful how I say this, you're not recognizing it or it's not required, not needed in this state, and going to these spaces. Now, I'm going to ramble just a hair longer because I know you have a lot to say about it. We talked about being intentional in this space. I have gone into this, it'll be into a state of ease and quickly muting the world, or maybe I'm pushing it out, whatever energetically I'm doing in the moment, and going to that space, being able to reset, reprogram, and come out of that. Now, I have not always been intentional going in, or going in with some intentions of the adjustments, changes I want to make. So the reintegration, what can happen is the old program would quickly fill the void, that vacuum, that space, the gap, that your allowance. When you come back, you're like, okay, now I'm back. I'm re-assimilating into my mind, body, emotions, back into it. And it's all very quick. I'm not talking about going on some astral projection thing for weeks at a time here. I'm talking, some of these are nanoseconds. And they can go on. You can meditate in this state for minutes, hours, whatever that is. But I would say that you particularly had given me that insight of how you approach it and being more intentional on the front end prior to entering these states of nothingness, no thingness. And I'm gonna let you talk on that a little bit, but I think that there's a real power to being a little bit more intentional on the front end of going into and releasing the energies.
Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying it depends.
Absolutely.
Okay, if I'm feeling great and I go into a meditation, I don't really have shit to work through, right? But one of the things is, this is a technique. All of this is techniques and tools, right? If something's weighing on you, I can't quite work it out what it is. And meditation may not be you may not be thinking that I need to meditate now. I'm telling you, meditate now. That's what you want. It's what you should be doing. Okay, settle down and just settle in. Right when you start to go into a meditation and you focus on your breathing and you close your eyes and settle in, really try to identify what it is you are feeling and where that resistance is coming from. It's a little bit. It's jealousy. It's what it is. It's jealousy of that person. Okay. Don't create any stories. Be mindful of the stories and drifting off. You're seeing it for what it is you put out in front of you. See for what it is. That's it. Then I drop into my meditation. I've identified what it is. I've identified the problem. And then I drop into my meditation. And then in a space of nothingness, I start to reprogram. Richard, is this really jealousy you feel? No, it's envy. Why are you envious? Because I'm jealous. I'm envious. I didn't have that idea or do that first. Okay, so it's your ego. Got it. So I have this conversation with self in a place of nothingness. Why? Because there's no talking back. And then when I come out of my meditation, I'm clear and I'm focused and I know what I need to do next.
That's an incredible way to approach that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, in all honesty, that's all I wanted to touch on with that subject. It's simple. I'm not saying that it's simple for everybody to jump into the state. Like, I'm not but it is, there's a purity to it. How about that?
There is. And I think what people struggle with, and we can close on this soon, is people who have not had it, gone to a space of nothingness, really living in their head. This whole concept just seems so foreign.
Sure.
So that's why I say just practice meditation every day. Don't put a time on it. If you only last a minute, you last a minute, who cares? But just do this every day and practice mindfulness.
Yeah.
Isolating feelings in the present moment, always in the present moment. Why am I thinking and feeling this way? Just for curiosity.
I would say too, not to wrap too much dogma around it, too much structure. This is my personal, but if you become too structured and rigid around it, you're drawing in that energy of, I need to do 1, 2, 3,
40,
get you there. And that's not what this is. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Here. There's a time and a space for doing 1, 2, 3 and actual steps in the real world to create things, but this is not that.
Yep.
So
I've enjoyed this conversation.
I did too.
I've enjoyed this conversation. I think we're just scraping the surface here.
I think there's some more we can dive into within the segments that we talked about today.
And I feel this topic or the awareness around energy and internal energy and energy in the quantum field, we're going to hear a lot more about this in the next
I believe so
years.
too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's more information. There's more people talking about it. There's more communication built around it. I think there's people maybe more accepted of even if it's not fully just the concept
Yeah.
of something of a larger scope just outside of our body.
I'm so passionate about this and I believe so much in this. I'm dedicating
Yeah.
my time and my effort to this for sure. My life.
Yeah. All right, man.
Thanks,
It was
buddy.
awesome.
Appreciate it, man.